So you start running through the zigzag like you do for all these things.
I'm gonna watch you.
Yeah, you're good. So you're coming across and hooking there. And not tight, but taut-ish. It'll stretch. You don't, all I'm doing is pulling the slack out, kind of like when you're first doing shaker tape. You're just pulling the slack out. You don't want it too loose because then it'll make bulges on the edge, and that's what you don't want. And the first set is always a set of 4. So you're hooking onto the nail in the front and then hooking on the nail in the back.
Yep.
Now you're ready
Just
to
keeping
roll.
it taut.
Now
Okay.
you're ready to roll. That
Yep.
it's nice and flat on this part, and that this crossover happens underneath on the back side as opposed to like there. Now this one, the nail is pretty low, so it's not in a great position, but that's about as good as you can, get to the front. Cool. Well, the textbook and how these are originally done is that you're hooking and then doing all of these all at once, like all the spokes, and then you do a wrap on the front and the wrap on the back. But having done some of the Wegener chairs where they wrap as they go, and that just makes a lot more sense to me. That you don't have to count. I can just do a whole bunch of these that are wrapped around, and I'll show you how that works out. And based on the first one that we did, you're probably 4 or 5 wraps in between, but again, it depends on whoever put the nails in.
You're not going to try to count the other chair and do everything the same
No.
because it really varies based on the nails.
100%. Yeah, it depends on where the nails are. And it's the same type deal where your material might be a little different. It might compress a little differently. And you're getting as much material as you can before you get to the next hook. Then you're on the hook. Okay. And making a spoke. Now, you see, and I've already got some wraps ready to go.
Left to right.
That's correct, left to right.
But over the nail, left to right, too.
That's
Okay,
correct.
Perfect.
That's correct. And again, taut, but not tight. Coming through every time and compressing. That's not only going to clean it up, but also ensure that you couldn't put another one. You know, that if you compress it and all of a sudden there's a lot more space, then maybe there's a room for another one on that before you get to that hook. Have to,
I dig
you
it.
can
That's
just
nice.
continue. Yeah, and that was one of those bonus things that when I was doing this, and I was just like, oh, sweet, I can just wrap, and it doesn't matter. Now, it looks like this one is going to try to untwist something. What are we doing here? The classic clockwise, counterclockwise. Okay, cool. And you just wrap a few. I will say that I don't wrap like 50, 8 or 10 at a time. Sometimes you can get 2 spokes before you're having to wrap again, but if you wrap too many, then it gets to be a mess. And it doesn't, it's like you're defeating the purpose of it being easier by making it more difficult on yourself. Make sure that your wraps are good and tight. Like that's, yeah, the spokes, we're gonna be weaving through them. It's gonna pull it up tighter, but these guys, make sure you're good and tight. Bam. So that one, there's only really room for 4 in between before you hit this next nail.
And on the rear rail, you're not really concerned about spacing between the spokes because that'll be worked out when you add in the other.
That's right.
pieces like
It's
we
the
did.
nails are there. All you're doing is hooking onto the nails, and then eventually you'll be wrapping in between
Yep.
them. But the nails rule. It's whoever put the nails in made that decision. There's only been once or twice that I can remember where maybe there was a nail that was so out of whack that you had to replace it. But for the most part, they're close. They're good enough. Out the way.
Five. All right.
And I do like to play the game of, ooh, that was the perfect number of wraps that I spooled on. These things. But I would never like count,
Yeah.
like,
It's the little things.
yeah, it's just like, oh, cool, that worked out.
Yeah.
All right, so that's how you start it. The beginning, you just keep wrapping, putting a spoke in as you go across, and show you how to finish up at the end. Because you've got,
Okay.
your 4s on the end. So I went ahead and marked the distance that 4 strands take up, because you don't have a nailed, well, I mean, there is a nail there, but you're not playing against the nail this time. You want to leave enough space to do the double pair. So there's the last one. That's a spoke. And it does get tight at the end with all these guys. And I think that'll work. So now you're ready to, you hook it on the nail just like you have done. Come through, tell you what. My guesstimate wrapping wasn't quite right. And it's tricky because you're moving from wrapped side to unwrapped side, and so you have to leave space on the back here for 2 strands as well. There. And so you'll have 2 hooks on the front rail. Again, it's a little, or on that front nail. And it's a little tricky. You want to make sure that underneath you're not crossed over terribly. You have to have a little bit of a crossover, but as far on the back as you can make it, the better off you are. And then same here is that you'll have the 2 loops on the same nail in the back.
Kind of like the beginning.
That's
Okay.
right. Now coming across the front, like cool, that actually fits nicely, not too bad. Then I'm coming up, get this. Sorry, the nail's not behaving. So instead of ending, and putting the kind of the snaking through, I'm just hooking the nail. And I'm ready to start weaving. And you can at least get some of this first bit done with the coil that you have left. And that's kind of ideal. You wouldn't want to have so big of a coil that you are, that it's a mess to deal with. And the very first line, I'm adding a little bit of slack into it because it naturally wants to go really straight. So you're trying to give it a little bit of wave so that you're not pulling these guys way up and down. I do want to make sure that it's tight on the edges, and then you're off to the races.
And from where you wove to where you're going on this too.
That's
the
correct.
hooks. Okay.
From
cool.
where, so it's to me so that you don't have anything crossed over, at least not within the same. Yeah, I don't know quite how to say that. And just like that reminder of, you're back and forth with it. And pulling it taut, and then letting it pull the slack out, so that you do get a lot of this serpentine action. The first row is always a little straighter, but the next ones after that, you want to be able to push them together. Tight on the rail, and most importantly, tight on the nail. That's the easiest spot to end up with slack that'll make the material on the rail, which you did a fantastic job with that on the other one. Everything was super uniform. But it's that very good and tight on the rail. And it's tough because then the nails start trying to spin sometimes and stuff like that. Same way, tight, and then letting it do what it wants to.
And you're doubling up on the nail?
Well, depends. So that's the next reminder. If I look straight down and I can still see the nail, like when you're looking straight down, it's not back under. Like if the nail is under the last strand that you put in, then I'm not going to use it anymore. It's not necessarily always 2 on a nail or anything like that. It's more about the distribution that you want it not to. You want it to be straight up, straight up, and a little bit of a lean back on the next one, as opposed to way lean back. And you certainly don't ever want to jump forward. So straight up and down, a little bit back. And this one's really tough. I don't know. I'm gonna choose that nail, but you know, sometimes there'll be 1 on a nail, sometimes there'll be 3 on a nail. That doesn't happen very often. But it just depends on who put the nails in.
And do you always like to be over on the edges?
I do. I like the first one to be over, and I think that that's how it always is, so that you don't have this thing like poofing up on the edge. But I feel like that's how it usually is. That really pulling it down and capturing it on the nail is very important. And then you can let go. Like once it creases on the nail, it's not going anyplace. It's not like you have to use clamps or anything like that.
Yeah, I remember this part is tight, touch,
Tight, exactly.
Because you're not giving it too much tension in the middle.
That's right. And
So you just continue using that up, and then you do the wraps. See that?
That's right. And you could stop. I mean, at this point, well, there's a good opportunity. We could do how you end it. I'm not 100% that we're going to be able. So that's getting towards the end of the strand. It's not going to be enough, I don't think.
To wrap it under.
Yeah, to wrap it under and then continue on this side. So, but you can have a single. It doesn't really matter. You don't. You know, so I'm going to end this, and I'm going to tip the chair so that we can look underneath. So this guy, I'm gonna come up and just serpentine. This guy was from the first ones, but you just serpentine through these guys a couple, and then the rest of these wraps as you go across or pin this into place. So that's you're ending that one, and then you'll do the same thing to start, but on the other side, so that you don't have a whole bunch of these serpentine things on the same side if you can avoid it. But that's enough to lock everything in place. Thanks, guys.